Admiral Hyan Wu stood on the bridge of Defense Station Aurora, staring at the tactical display with calm eyes. 3,000 red dots moved toward human space like a swarm of angry insects. Each dot represented a Valkyrie warship, and together they formed the largest invasion fleet the galaxy had seen in 50 years. Hyan Wu had only 200 ships to stop them. Commander G1 approached from the communications station, her face tight with worry. She carried a datapad that showed evacuation progress from the civilian stations in the sector. Families were being loaded onto transport ships, children crying as they left their homes behind. The Valkyrie had given them 12 hours to surrender or die. 10 hours had already passed. The last transport just cleared the jump point, G1 reported. Her voice stayed steady, but Hyan Wu noticed her hands gripping the datapad too hard. All civilians are safe. We're alone out here now. Hyan Wu nodded and turned back to the display. The Valkyrie Supreme Warlord, Dane, had sent a message earlier that day. His scaled face had filled every screen in human space, speaking words meant to break their spirit. The Valkyrie Empire had conquered 17 different species in the past century. They had never lost a war. They had never even lost a major battle. Humanity would be number 18 on their list, Thane promised. Unless Earth surrendered immediately, the Human Council had sent their answer in 3 words. Come and try. Now the Valkyrie were coming. And Hyan Wu held the key to humanity's response. Protocol Midnight sat locked in the station's central computer, waiting for his command codes. The protocol had been tested in simulations 1,000 times, but never in real combat. Nobody knew exactly what would happen when they activated it. The scientists promised it would work. The politicians hoped it would work. Hyan Wu needed it to work. Signal from the Valkyrie flagship. The communications officer called out. They're demanding we power down all weapons and prepare for boarding. Ignore it, Hyan Wu said quietly. He moved to his command chair and sat down, fingers moving across the control panel. G1, confirm all ships are in position. G1 checked her displays and nodded. All vessels report ready. Crews are at battle stations. They're waiting for your order, sir. The Valkyrie fleet crossed into the terminus sector with weapons hot and shields raised. Their formation looked like a hammer designed to crush anything in its path. Thane's flagship led from the center, a massive dreadnought twice the size of any human ship. The Valkyrie had every reason to feel confident. By every logical calculation, they had already won this battle. Hyan Wu entered the first sequence of activation codes. Green lights appeared on his console as the system began waking up. Deep in the station's core, equipment salvaged from a dead civilization started drawing power. The architects had vanished from the galaxy 3 million years ago, leaving behind ruins and technology that humanity barely understood. One of those pieces of technology was about to be used for the first time. Admiral, the Valkyrie Vanguard is entering firing range, G1 announced. 500 ships advancing ahead of the main fleet. Let them come closer, Hyan Wu said. He entered the second sequence of codes. The station hummed with energy that made the lights flicker. Several crew members looked around nervously, but nobody spoke. They trusted their admiral. The Valkyrie Vanguard opened fire at maximum range, testing human defenses with long-range weapons. Energy beams and missiles crossed the empty space between the fleets. Human ships scattered and returned fire, but everyone knew it was just a show. The real battle would begin when the main Valkyrie fleet arrived. Hyan Wu watched the tactical display and waited. The moment had to be perfect. The Valkyrie Vanguard pushed forward, growing bolder as they met little resistance. They thought the humans were weak, running scared. They had no idea what was about to happen. Now, Hyan Wu said, and entered the final code. The effect was immediate and impossible. 1 moment, 500 Valkyrie warships filled the tactical display. The next moment, empty space existed where those ships had been. No explosions lit up the darkness. No debris scattered across the sector. No energy signatures registered on any sensor. The ships simply stopped existing, as if they had never been there at all. On the bridge of Defense Station Aurora, absolute silence fell. Even G1, who had read all the reports about Protocol Midnight, stared at the empty space with wide eyes. The human crews in the sector watched their displays and struggled to believe what they saw. The Valkyrie main fleet stopped advancing. Haiyan Wu imagined the chaos on Thane's bridge, officers shouting and sensors screaming errors. The Supreme Warlord broadcast on all frequencies, his scaled face now showing confusion instead of confidence. "What did you do?" Thane demanded. "Where are my ships? What weapon is this?" Haiyan Wu did not answer. He simply watched as Thane, in his rage and disbelief, ordered the rest of the fleet forward. The Valkyrie came in waves, determined to crush humanity through sheer numbers. Protocol Midnight activated again and again, each pulse erasing clusters of ships from reality. 10 ships vanished, then 50, then hundreds at a time. G-1 counted them off with a hollow voice. 1,000 gone. 1,500. 2,000. The numbers climbed until they stopped meaning anything. The Valkyrie kept coming and kept disappearing, pulled out of existence by technology older than their entire civilization. 6 hours after the battle began, the tactical display showed empty space. 3,000 Valkyrie warships had entered the terminus sector. 0 remained. Thane's final transmission echoed through the communication channels. A scream of disbelief that cut off mid-sound as his flagship joined the others in non-existence. Haiyan Wu sat in his command chair and felt suddenly very tired. Around him, the bridge crew remained silent. Nobody celebrated. Nobody cheered. They had won the most complete victory in military history, and all they felt was a deep unease about what they had become. "Log the battle results," Haiyan Wu finally said, "and send a message to Earth. Tell them Protocol Midnight works exactly as designed." He paused, looking at the empty space where an entire fleet used to be. "Tell them God help us all." 16 cycles had passed since the Valkyrie disappeared, and the galaxy still talked about it in whispers. Dayun worked late in her laboratory on Diplomatic Station Harmony, studying data that made her stomach twist with worry. Beside her, Taeyang ran another simulation on the holographic display, and the results came back the same as always. "It's confirmed again," Taeyang said quietly, adjusting his glasses. The Valkyrie ships weren't destroyed. They were removed from space-time itself. It's like they were cut out of reality with scissors. Dayun saved the data and looked at the simulation showing what happened in the terminus sector. The architect technology that humanity had discovered created a field that simply erased matter from existence. No conversion to energy, no scattered atoms, just complete removal from the universe. The implications terrified her. "We need to tell the Council," Dayun said. "They need to understand what Protocol Midnight actually does. This isn't a weapon. It's something far worse." Before Taeyang could respond, the laboratory door opened and Ambassador Sungmin entered. He looked exhausted, carrying the weight of failed diplomacy on his shoulders. Dayun had known Sungmin for 3 years, and she had never seen him look this defeated. "The Korthic Dominion has rejected our warning," Sungmin announced, sitting down heavily in a chair. "High Prelate Voss called me a liar to my face. He said humanity is bluffing, using tricks and propaganda to hide how weak we really are." "You told them about the architect technology?" Taeyang asked. "I told them everything I was authorized to share," Sungmin replied. "I explained that we possess weapons beyond conventional understanding, salvaged from a civilization that died out millions of years ago. I warned them that challenging humanity would lead to the same fate as the Valkyrie. He shook his head bitterly. Voss laughed at me. Dayun felt her chest tighten with dread. The Korthic Dominion ruled over 40 star systems and commanded one of the largest military forces in the sector. They were arrogant and aggressive, always looking to expand their territory. If they decided to test humanity's defenses, the result would be catastrophic. When? She asked, simply. The Korthic Assembly voted this morning, Sungmin said. They're sending a fleet to seize our mining operations in the outer reaches. 5,000 ships under Voss's direct command. They launch in 3 days. Taeyang let out a long breath and turned off his simulation. The laboratory fell into heavy silence as they all understood what this meant. 5,000 Korthic warships heading toward human space, and Earth would respond with Protocol Midnight again. Another fleet would disappear, and the galaxy's fear of humanity would grow even darker. Dayun grabbed her personal communicator and sent an urgent message to her brother Jinho, a captain in the Defense Corps. She typed quickly, attaching all her research data about the architect technology. Jinho needed to understand what he might be ordered to do. He needed to know the truth. Her communicator chimed with a reply faster than she expected. Jinho's message was brief and cold. I know. I have the activation codes. No, Dayun whispered, staring at the screen. A brother, who used to build model ships with her when they were children, now held the power to erase thousands of living beings from existence. The weight of it must be crushing him. Soon-Min stood and walked to the window, overlooking the diplomatic station's main hangar. Alien ships from a dozen different species sat in the docking bays, traders and envoys going about their business. Soon, many of those species would look at humanity with pure terror. I tried everything, Sungmin said softly. I begged Voss to reconsider. I offered trade agreements, technology sharing, territorial concessions. He refused it all. The Korthic believe that showing any restraint is weakness. They think we're prey animals trying to scare away predators with loud noises. They're about to learn different, Taeyang said. There was no satisfaction in his voice, only sadness. Dayun pulled up her research files and began writing a formal report to the Human Council. If the Korthic fleet was going to disappear in 3 days, then at least the people making that decision should understand the full consequences. The architect technology didn't just erase ships and crews. It created ripples in space-time, tiny fractures in the fabric of reality itself. The effects were small now, barely measurable, but they were accumulating. What happens if we keep using it? Taeyang asked, reading over her shoulder. The architect weapon, I mean. What if we have to erase 10 more fleets? 20? Dayun didn't answer immediately. She ran calculations in her head, numbers that made her feel sick. Eventually, reality starts to fragment. Space-time becomes unstable. The architects disappeared for a reason, and I'm starting to think they were caught in their own technology side effects. Then we need to find another way, Sungmin said firmly. We need to make the galaxy understand that we're not a threat without having to erase anyone else. How? Dayun asked. The Valkyrie challenged us and vanished. Now the Korthic are doing the same thing. How do we break this cycle? Nobody had an answer. The three of them stood in the laboratory, surrounded by data about weapons that should never have been found, let alone used. Somewhere in space, 5,000 Korthic warships were preparing to launch. In 3 days, they would cross into human territory with weapons charged and shields raised. High Prelate Voss would be commanding them personally, absolutely certain of his victory. Dayun's communicator chimed again. This time, it was a message from Jinho with just 4 words. I wish I could refuse. She understood completely. Jinho was a soldier following orders, bound by duty and oath to protect humanity. If the Korthic attacked, He would activate Protocol Midnight because that was his job. The moral weight of erasing 5,000 ships and their crews would fall on him, and he would carry it for the rest of his life. There has to be another way, Dayun said again, but the words sounded hollow even to her. The Korthik were coming, and humanity's response was already decided. Soong-Min checked his own communicator and sighed. The Council wants me back on Earth for an emergency session. They're going to ask me to make one final attempt at diplomacy with the Korthik. Will you? Taeyang asked. Of course, Soong-Min replied. I'll keep trying until the moment the shooting starts. That's what ambassadors do. He headed for the door, then paused and looked back at Dayun and Taeyang. Keep researching the architect technology. Find its weaknesses, its limitations, anything that might help us understand it better. Because I have a terrible feeling we're going to need that knowledge soon. After Soong-Min left, Dayun and Taeyang returned to their work in silence. The simulations ran over and over, showing the same results. The architect weapon worked perfectly, which was precisely the problem. It gave humanity the power to erase any threat without risk, and that kind of power changed people. It changed civilizations. 3 days later, the Korthik fleet entered human space. Dayun watched the news broadcast from her laboratory, holding her breath. Jinho's face appeared briefly on the screen, standing at his command post. His eyes looked hollow. The broadcast cut to static, and when it returned, the reporter's voice shook as they announced that the Korthik fleet had vanished without a trace. 5,000 warships gone. High Prelate Voss gone. All of it simply erased from existence. Dayun closed her eyes and thought about the architects. That ancient civilization that built weapons capable of removing things from reality itself. She wondered if they had felt this same sick horror when they first used their technology. She wondered if they had known they were starting down a path that would eventually lead to their own disappearance. Outside her laboratory window, alien ships began quietly leaving the diplomatic station. The word was spreading fast. Humanity had made another Challenger disappear. Captain Jae-Soong commanded the frigate Observer from a position far outside the combat zone. His orders were simple and grim. Document everything that happened when the Korthik fleet met humanity's defense. The brass wanted a complete record this time. Footage that could be studied and analyzed for years to come. Lieutenant Yoonji sat at the communication station, her fingers dancing across controls as she monitored every frequency. The Korthik had been broadcasting constantly since entering human space, their messages full of threats and demands. Prelate Voss himself had sent 3 separate ultimatums, each one more aggressive than the last. They're really not taking this seriously, Yoonji said, shaking her head. Voss keeps talking like he's already won. He's calling us cowards and animals. He doesn't know, Jae-Soong replied quietly. He thinks the Volcari story is propaganda. He's about to learn it's real. The Korthik fleet advanced in a formation that looked beautiful and deadly. 5,000 warships moved together like a school of fish, their hulls gleaming in the light of distant stars. Voss commanded from his flagship at the center, a vessel so large it had its own gravitational field. The Korthik had brought enough firepower to level entire planets. Jae-Sung's sensor officer called out readings as the fleets moved closer. Human defense ships had taken position near the outer reaches mining stations, but everyone knew they were just for show. The real defense waited in computer systems, ready to activate on command. Sir, I'm picking up strange readings from the Korthik flagship, Unji reported. Their sensors are going crazy. They're detecting the same energy signature that appeared right before the Volcari disappeared. They know something's wrong, Jae-Soong said. He watched his tactical display with grim fascination. But they're not retreating. Voss is too proud. The communications channel suddenly filled with frantic Korthik voices. Their sensor operators were screaming warnings, detecting energy levels that shouldn't exist. Voss's voice cut through the chaos, ordering his fleet to maintain formation and charge weapons. He refused to believe humanity could actually threaten his armada. Then the erasure began. And Jae-sung witnessed something that would haunt him forever. The Korthic fleet didn't disappear all at once like the Volcari had. This time, humanity had refined the architect technology. The erasures happened in precise synchronized pulses. Entire wings of warships vanished simultaneously, hundreds of vessels cut from reality in perfect coordination. It looked almost choreographed, like a dance of deletion. Voss's final transmission echoed across every frequency. His voice had lost all its arrogance, replaced by pure disbelief and terror. "This isn't possible," he said. "This can't be real. This can't be." The transmission ended mid-word as the flagship vanished. One moment, a massive dreadnought filled the center of the formation. The next moment, empty space. No flash of light, no dramatic explosion. Just nothing where something used to be. Jae-sung's bridge fell into absolute silence. Even the background hum of the ship's systems seemed too loud. The crew stared at their displays, watching as the last few Korthic ships winked out of existence. The entire process took less than 15 minutes from start to finish. "Captain," Yunji said, her voice barely a whisper, "I'm checking our historical databases. There's no record of the Korthic fleet launching. No departure logs, no filed flight plans, no communications leading up to their arrival. What are you saying?" Jae-sung asked, though he already knew the answer. "I'm saying it's like they never left Korthic space at all," Eunji replied, her hand shaking as she pulled up data. "The 5,000 ships and their crews, they're just gone. Not destroyed. Gone. Our computers don't remember them existing in the first place." Jae-sung felt ice spread through his chest. The only reason his crew remembered the Korthic fleet was because they had witnessed the erasure directly. Everyone else in the galaxy, anyone who hadn't been watching when it happened, would have no memory of those ships ever launching. It was as if reality had been rewritten to exclude them. "Sir, we're receiving orders to return to base," the navigation officer reported. "Earth wants a full debrief." During the long journey back to human space, Jae-sung wrote his report 3 times and deleted it twice. How did you explain witnessing 5,000 ships and their crews being erased from existence? How did you put into words the sick feeling of watching reality itself being edited like a document? On Earth, Chief Historian Young-suk received Jae-sung's report and immediately requested an emergency session with the Human Council. She had been studying the architects for 7 years, ever since humanity first discovered their ruins on a dead world at the edge of known space. What she had learned terrified her. The council met in a secure chamber deep underground. Defense Minister Haijin sat at the head of the table, flanked by military advisors and civilian leaders. Councillor Minho represented the diplomatic corps, his face showing the strain of trying to maintain humanity's relationships with alien species who now feared and avoided them. Young-suk presented her findings with calm professionalism, though inside she felt anything but calm. The architects were the dominant civilization in this region of space approximately 3 million years ago, she explained, displaying holographic images of ancient ruins. They built the weapon we now call Protocol Midnight as a deterrent against an enemy we know nothing about. A deterrent that works, Haijin said firmly. 2 major powers have challenged us, and both are gone. The galaxy is learning to leave humanity alone. At what cost? Minho demanded. Half the trading partners we had 6 months ago have cut all contact. 3 species have filed formal protests with the Galactic Council, calling us a threat to all life. We're becoming isolated. Better isolated than conquered, Haijin shot back. The galaxy saw us as weak, as prey, Now they know better. Young Suk cleared her throat, drawing attention back to her presentation. There's something else you need to know. The architects themselves vanished mysteriously. One day, they controlled dozens of star systems. The next, they were simply gone. No survivors, no records of what happened to them. The council chamber fell quiet. Young Suk continued, her voice steady despite her fear. I believe the architects were caught in their own technology side effects. The weapon they built to protect themselves eventually destroyed them, possibly by accident, possibly through overuse. We may be following the exact same path. You're saying Protocol Midnight could turn on us? One of the counselors asked. I'm saying we don't fully understand it, Young Suk replied. We're using technology from a dead civilization without knowing why that civilization died. That should concern us deeply. Haijin stood and paced the chamber. What choice do we have? If we mothball the weapon, if we let the galaxy know we've disarmed, how long before the challenges start again? How long before some empire decides to test our defenses? Nobody had a good answer. The debate continued for hours, going in circles. Some counselors argued for continuing to use Protocol Midnight as a deterrent. Others pushed for finding alternatives, for trying to build relationships based on something other than fear. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, species that had once considered humanity insignificant now watched human movements with intense wariness. Ships changed course to avoid human patrols. Trade routes shifted to bypass human space. Diplomatic channels went quiet. Back on the Observer, Jin Sang sat in his quarters and thought about the Korthik crews who had vanished. They had families, friends, lives beyond their military service. Now they simply didn't exist, and only a handful of people in the entire universe remembered them. The weight of that knowledge pressed down on him like gravity. Eun-ji knocked on his door, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She sat down without asking and handed him one. Can't sleep either? She asked. Every time I close my eyes, I see it happening, Jae-seung admitted. The ship's just disappearing. Reality being rewritten. Do you think we're the bad guys now? Yoon-ji asked quietly. Jae-seung took a long drink of coffee before answering. I think we're survivors using weapons we don't understand against threats we can't defeat any other way. Whether that makes us bad or just desperate, I honestly don't know. Outside the Observer's window, stars burned in the darkness, indifferent to the struggles of civilizations. Somewhere in that vast emptiness, more species watched humanity with fear and wondered who would be next to challenge mankind and disappear. 2 years had passed since the Korthik Dominion vanished, and trade emissary Su Jin found herself sitting alone in yet another empty conference room. She had traveled to the Barrent Station, hoping to negotiate a new trade agreement with the Metharian Commerce Guild. The Metharians had sent a polite message canceling the meeting 30 minutes before it was scheduled to start. Su Jin looked at her reflection in the dark conference table and felt tired. This was the 7th canceled meeting in 3 weeks. Nobody wanted to trade with humanity anymore. Nobody wanted to sit in a room with representatives from the species that could make entire fleets disappear. A communicator buzzed with a message from her supervisor on Earth. Keep trying. We need those trade routes. Easy for them to say from the safety of home. They didn't have to watch alien diplomats literally flee when they saw a human approaching. Deep beneath Europa's frozen surface, engineer Dong Hyan worked in the architect facility that humanity had built to study and operate Protocol Midnight. The facility hummed with power from equipment that nobody truly understood. Dong Hyan ran his daily diagnostics and noticed something that made his blood run cold. Dr. Baora, he called out to his supervisor. You need to see this. Dr. Baora approached his workstation, adjusting her protective gear. She had been studying the architect technology longer than anyone else in the facility. The equipment frightened her, but she hid it well. What did you find? Dong Haiyan pulled up a holographic display showing microscopic readings of space-time around the facility. Look at these measurements. Each time we activate Protocol Midnight, it creates tiny rifts in the fabric of reality. They're incredibly small, barely measurable, but they're there. Butjora studied the data with growing concern. She ran the calculations 3 times to make sure Dong Haiyan hadn't made an error. The numbers came back the same each time. And they're accumulating, she said quietly. Each activation leaves a tiny scar in space-time, and those scars aren't healing. What happens if we keep using the weapon? Dong Haiyan asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Eventually, reality itself could begin fragmenting in this region of space, Butjora replied. She saved the data and began writing an urgent report to the Human Council. The architects didn't just disappear. I think they tore a hole in reality and fell through it. Before she could finish her report, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Emergency lights flashed red as the communication system crackled to life. All personnel, this is Commander Kyung-soo at Border Station Delta. We have an unidentified alien vessel approaching human space. They're not responding to standard hails. Preparing to activate Protocol Midnight on your command. Butjora and Dong Haiyan exchanged horrified looks. Another activation, another fleet about to disappear, another set of scars in the fabric of reality. Butjora ran to the communications panel and opened a direct channel to Commander Kyung-soo. This is Dr. Butjora at Europa facility. Do not activate the weapon until we understand the situation. That is a direct order from the Science Division. Kyung-soo's face appeared on the screen, showing confusion and frustration. He was a military officer trained to follow protocols, and Protocol Midnight was clear. Unidentified vessels approaching human space were to be eliminated as threats. With respect, Doctor, my orders come from Defense Command, not the Science Division. Please, Commander, Butjora said urgently. Just give us time to determine if they're actually hostile. Every activation of that weapon damages space-time itself. We can't keep using it carelessly. Kyung-soo hesitated. He looked at something off-screen, probably his tactical display. They're broadcasting now, he said. It's not in any language our computers recognize. Wait, Medical Officer Hae-won says she recognizes some of the mathematical patterns. She thinks it's a distress call. At Border Station Delta, Medical Officer Hae-won worked frantically to decode the alien transmission. She had studied xenobiology and alien communication systems before joining the military. The patterns in this broadcast looked familiar, similar to medical emergency codes used by several species. Commander, they're asking for help, Hae-won said, looking up from her console. This is a civilian ship, not a military vessel. They're saying something about plague and desperation. Kyung-soo studied the approaching ship through his viewport. It looked battered and old, nothing like the warships that the Valkyrie and Korthik had sent. No weapons were visible on its hull. The vessel barely had enough power to maintain life support, according to his sensors. Identify their species, Kyung-soo ordered. Thalax Confederation, the sensor officer reported. They're from the Outer Rim territories, far from here. Sir, our databases show the Thalax are facing an extinction-level plague. Their entire civilization is dying. One moved closer to Kyung-soo, her voice urgent. They've come to us for medical aid. They must have heard about humanity's biotechnology research. Commander, they're not invaders. They're refugees. Kyung-soo faced an impossible choice. Every protocol, every training session, every order from Defense Command said that unidentified alien vessels approaching human space were threats to be eliminated. Protocol Midnight existed for exactly this situation. He had the activation codes ready. One command and the Thalax ship would vanish like all the others. But this time felt different. The Valkyrie had come with 3,000 warships, threatening conquest. The Korthik had come with 5,000, demanding submission. The Thalax had come with one dying ship, begging for mercy. "Stand down the weapon," Kyung-Soo said quietly. "Open a channel to the Thalax vessel." The communications officer looked shocked but obeyed. The main screen flickered to life, showing a Thalax captain who looked exhausted and ill. Their skin had an unhealthy color, and they moved slowly as if in pain. "This is Commander Kyung-Soo of the Human Defense Corps," Kyung-Soo said carefully. "We've received your distress call. You're seeking medical assistance?" The Thalax captain nodded weakly. "We are dying," they said in broken standard language. "Our doctors have no answers. Our medical facilities have failed. We heard that humanity possesses advanced biotechnology. We have come to beg for your help. We have nothing to offer in trade except our gratitude." HFY stepped forward. "Commander, I can help them. Let me go to their ship." "Absolutely not," Kyung-Soo said immediately. "We don't know what kind of plague they're carrying. It could be dangerous to humans." "Then let them dock here," HFY countered. "We have isolation facilities. We can study their conditions safely." "Commander, they're dying. We have the power to save them or destroy them. I'm asking you to choose saving them." Kyung-Soo stood frozen, feeling the weight of the decision crushing down on him. He thought about Admiral Hyun-woo, who had activated Protocol Midnight against the Valkyrie. He thought about Captain Jin-ho, who had erased the Korthik fleet. Both men had followed orders and protocol, doing what humanity demanded of them. Both men had become something darker in the process. "Thalax vessel, you are cleared to dock at Bay 7, Kyung-Soo said finally. "Medical teams will meet you there. Any hostile action will result in immediate termination. Do you understand?" The Thalax captain's face showed relief and gratitude. "We understand. Thank you. Thank you for your mercy." The decision sent shockwaves through the Human Defense Command. Within hours, Kyung-Soo received angry messages from Defense Minister Hae-jin, demanding to know why he had violated protocol. He also received quiet messages of support from people like Ambassador Soo-min and Emissary Soo-jin, who had been desperately trying to show the galaxy that humanity could be more than feared. HFY worked day and night studying the Thalax plague. It turned out to be a modified virus, something that had escaped from a biological research facility decades ago. Human medical technology, particularly the bioengineering techniques developed from architect data, provided a solution. Within 2 weeks, HFY had synthesized a treatment. The Thalax captain stood in the medical bay, tears streaming down their face as the treatment took effect. "You saved us," they said to HFY. "You saved my entire species. We came expecting destruction, and you gave us life instead." News of the event spread across the galaxy faster than any government could control it. Species that had been terrified of humanity suddenly saw a different possibility. The humans who could make fleets disappear had chosen mercy instead. They had helped aliens who came to them desperate and defenseless. Soo-jin received her first trade meeting request in over a year. Then another. And another. Slowly, cautiously, some species began reaching out to humanity again, no longer seeing them as only monsters with terrible weapons. On Earth, the Human Council held another heated debate. Defense Minister Hae-jin demanded that Kyung-Soo be disciplined for violating protocol. Councilor Min-ho argued that Kyung-Soo had possibly saved humanity's soul by proving they could be more than their weapons. The vote was close. But in the end, Kyung-Soo received a formal reprimand for his file and a private commendation for his courage. The debate raised a larger question that humanity could no longer avoid. What kind of species did they want to be? The feared wielders of Protocol Midnight, or something better? The answer would come sooner than anyone expected. The message from the Vex supremacy arrived without warning, broadcast simultaneously across every human communication channel. Empress Lyrics appeared on screens throughout human space, her form both alien and oddly majestic. The Vex had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 10,000 years, longer than human civilization had existed. Humanity, Lyrics said in perfect standard language, you have demonstrated power that demands our attention. I offer you a choice. Join the Vex supremacy as equals and allies, or face our judgment. You have 30 days to decide. The transmission ended, leaving humanity's leadership in chaos. Defense Minister Haijin immediately called for military mobilization. Councilor Minho urged diplomatic engagement. Ambassador Chanwu found himself chosen to lead a delegation to the Vex homeworld. Accompanied by Security Chief Na-Young. Chanwu had been a diplomat for 15 years, but he had never felt pressure like this. If his mission failed, humanity would face war with the oldest and most powerful empire in known space. If he succeeded, humanity might gain its first true ally among the stars. The journey to the Vex homeworld took 2 weeks. During that time, Chanwu studied everything humanity knew about the Vex civilization. They were not conquerors like the Velkari or aggressive expansionists like the Korthic. The Vex believed in order, stability, and the careful management of galactic affairs. They had seen empires rise and fall for millennia, and they survived by being both wise and ruthless. Na-Young spent the journey running security drills and contingency plans. She trusted nothing and no one. They could be planning to eliminate us the moment we arrive, she warned Chanwu. The Vex might see Protocol Midnight as too dangerous to allow to exist. Then we convince them otherwise, Chanwu replied. Though he shared her concerns. Meanwhile, back on Europa, Dr. Boera made a discovery that changed everything. She called an emergency meeting with Fleet Admiral Sanghyun, the highest-ranking military officer in human space. Her hand shook as she presented her findings. The weapon's activation signature has been detected, Boera said, pulling up sensor data from deep space monitoring stations. Something is responding to Protocol Midnight's energy signature. Something massive, and it's heading toward human space at impossible speeds. Sanghyun studied the data with growing alarm. He had commanded fleets for 30 years, fought in 3 major wars, and nothing he had seen prepared him for this. What is it? An architect automated defense system, Boera explained. The weapon we've been using sends out a specific energy signature every time it activates. The architects designed it that way deliberately. The signature acts as a beacon, calling their defense systems to eliminate anyone using their technology. How long do we have? Sanghyun asked. 6 weeks, maybe less. Admiral, we can't fight this thing with Protocol Midnight. Every time we activate the weapon, we'll just be calling more defense systems. The architects designed the perfect trap. Anyone powerful enough to use their technology becomes a target for elimination. Sanghyun immediately mobilized every ship in the human fleet. He sent urgent messages to Chanwu on his diplomatic mission, explaining the new threat. Humanity needed allies now more than ever, and they needed them fast. On the Vex homeworld, Chanwu met Empress Lyrics in a chamber that looked older than mountains. Ancient Vex technology hummed in the walls, systems that had operated continuously for thousands of years. Lyrics herself appeared to be middle-aged by Vex standards, but Chanwu knew she had ruled for over 3 centuries. Ambassador Chanwu, Lyrics said, her voice resonating with controlled power. Let us speak plainly. Your species possesses technology from the architects. We know this because we fought the architects long ago, before your ancestors had learned to make fire. Chanwu felt his carefully prepared diplomatic speech become useless. Lyrics knew far more than humanity had suspected. You fought them? And survived? We survived because we learned the truth about their weapons, Lyrics replied. She gestured, and holographic displays showed ancient battles between Vex and Architect forces. They built weapons that could erase matter from existence, yes. But those weapons were also beacons, calling automated defense systems to eliminate anyone who used them. The architects trapped themselves in a cycle of their own making, and eventually they vanished. Consumed by their own defense systems, Chanwu said, understanding dawning. The same systems that are now coming for us. Precisely, Lyrics confirmed. We have detected the same energy signatures that heralded the architect's doom. Your use of their weapon has awakened defense systems that have slept for millions of years. Now those systems are coming to eliminate the threat they were designed to destroy. Anyone using architect technology. Nayoung stepped forward. Then help us. You have technology that can fight these defense systems. You survived the architects once. Lyrics regarded Nayoung with something that might have been respect. We did not fight them, child. We hid from them, waited for them to destroy themselves, then emerged when the danger passed. But humanity has done something we never did. You have chosen mercy when you could have chosen destruction. She pulled up footage of Commander Kyung-soo helping the Phalanx refugees. This act reached our intelligence networks quickly. It showed us that humanity possesses not just terrible power, but the wisdom to know when not to use it. That is why I offer alliance, rather than simply waiting for the architect systems to eliminate you. Chanwu felt hope surge in his chest. You'll help us? If you prove worthy of that help, Lyrics said. I want complete transparency about the architect technology. I want your cooperation in dismantling it safely. Most importantly, I want humanity's word that you will never use Protocol Midnight again, even to save yourselves from the coming defense system. The price was high, but Chanwu had no room to negotiate. He sent an urgent message to Earth, explaining the situation. The Human Council debated for 12 hours straight. Defense Minister Hai-jin argued passionately for keeping Protocol Midnight, calling it humanity's only guarantee of survival. But the vote went against her. Humanity agreed to Lyrics' terms. The architect defense system arrived in human space exactly 42 days after Biora first detected it. The thing was massive, a construct the size of a small moon, covered in weapons that predated human civilization. It broadcast a simple message in mathematical code. Identify and eliminate protocol. Midnight Technology. Fleet Admiral Sang Hyun commanded the combined human and Vex fleets from his flagship. Beside him, a Vex tactical officer named Kurseth coordinated their forces. The plan was desperate and dangerous. Instead of destroying the defense system, they would disable it using Vex temporal technology combined with human engineering creativity. Lieutenant Jiun of Naval Intelligence had developed the attack strategy. Her plan required precise timing and perfect coordination between two species that had never fought together before. One mistake would doom both fleets. All ships, this is Admiral Sang Hyun, he announced across all channels. Today we do not fight to destroy an enemy. We fight to save ourselves from our own weapons. Execute the plan. The human and Vex ships moved in perfect formation, drawing the defense system's attention while specialized vessels deployed temporal anchors around it. The defense system fought back with weapons that bent space-time and erased matter, but the Vex had faced such weapons before. They knew how to counter them. In the crucial moment, Admiral Hyun-woo came out of retirement to personally pilot the ship that would deliver the final component. The old admiral, who had first activated Protocol Midnight against the Valkyrie, now worked to eliminate it forever. He guided his ship through impossible fire, placed the temporal anchor, and triggered the shutdown sequence. The architect defense system froze in time, suspended in a bubble where it could harm nothing. It would remain there for millions of years. A monument to the dangers of using weapons you don't understand. With the immediate crisis resolved, humanity dismantled Protocol Midnight. Dr. Bara and engineer Dong Hyan worked alongside Vex scientists to safely shut down the Architect facility on Europa. Every piece of equipment was documented and studied, but never used again. The knowledge was preserved, but the weapon was destroyed. 3 months later, Empress Lyrics addressed the Galactic Council with Ambassador Chanwu standing at her side. She told the assembled species about the true nature of the Architects and their weapons. She explained how humanity had possessed the power to erase any threat, but had chosen to give up that power for the sake of galactic stability. The species that challenged mankind disappeared, Lyrics said, her voice carrying to every corner of the council chamber. But not because humanity destroyed them with superior weapons. They disappeared because humanity evolved beyond the need for such weapons. The Volcarian Korthic were raised by fear and arrogance, humanity's own as much as theirs. Now humanity has learned wisdom, and in doing so, they have become worthy of respect rather than fear. The Council's response was mixed, but trade routes began reopening. Diplomatic channels came back to life. Slowly, carefully, humanity started building real relationships with alien species based on mutual respect rather than terror. On Earth, Dayun and Taeyang led a joint human-Vex research team studying Architect ruins.